right. All right. So guys, podcast time. What is going on? I'm going to give it a couple minutes. We're going to wait for some people to tune in. I see some are tuning in already. What's going on, guys? I appreciate you all as you come in. Make sure to drop a comment. Let me know how your day's going, how your week's going, how training's going. If you got anything coming up, talk to me. We're going to be getting into the podcast in a minute or two here, and we're talking today about the difference between busy and productive. And I'm very, very much looking forward to this one because this is something that, so many people need some education on. So we're talking about the difference between busy and productive. But in the meantime, as you tune in, let me know how training's going. Drop any questions that you've got as well, because I'm going to be doing some Q&A at the end. And we're going to give it about another minute, maybe 30 seconds before we get into the podcast. And we're talking today about the difference between busy and productive. This is one that so many of you guys need. I promise you are going to get value from this one today. Now, the reason we're talking about this and the reason that this is something that so many of you guys need is because it's very easy to mistake the difference between these two. It's very easy to think you're being productive, to think you're making improvements in your career, and actually just be fucking busy. So make sure that you tune into this. Make sure that you take some notes. And before we get into it, last thing, I've been dealing with some issues, lungs and all that the last couple of days. So if I'm coughing a little bit while I am talking, I apologize in advance. Promise the message is still good. So guys, let's get into it. The difference between being busy and productive. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sports. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're talking about the difference between being busy and being productive. Now, the big reason that I wanted to bring this one to you guys is plain and simple. I need to wake some of you up. And I need to wake some of you up because some people, and there are some that, I know are very guilty of this, even within my own Instagram account. And my goal is not to sit here and call someone out for asking questions, because I'm all for trying to learn, trying to improve, all of those things. But what I really want to make sure that we're getting into is when the questions are too many questions and when you actually need to just go take action. The difference between being busy, asking questions, learning new information, and being productive, actually using the information that you're learning so that it can benefit you. Because, guys, information without execution is just noise. And I'm going to say that one more time, and I need you to write it down, and I need you to understand it. Information without execution is just noise. It's useless. If you don't actually use the information you learn, it's not benefiting you having it just sitting in your head. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because, like I said, I've got to wake some people up. There are a lot of people in my accounts every day asking questions. How do I do this? How do I improve this? How do I build my conditioning? How do I build my strength? What exercises do I do for this? What's the best way to do this? The best way to do that? And on the one side, I applaud you for asking questions. But on the other side, what you've got to understand, and again, my goal here is not to call any one individual out because everybody's on a different part of this journey. But my goal is to help you understand when the questions are too many questions. If you've been sending question after question after question, but then you keep not doing anything or not changing anything or not trying to implement the information that you're getting, you are busy, but you're not productive. You're trying to make yourself feel better because, hey, look, I'm getting more information. I'm learning more. I'm trying to develop blah, 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 but you're not doing anything with it. And if you're not doing anything with it, you can ask 400 million questions and stay in the same place. It's not useful to have all the information. Who's going to get further? The one who spends the next 6 months asking questions, or the one who spends the next 6 months trying things and asking questions based off of what they've tried? I guarantee you, number 2. So, excuse me. This is what I really want you guys to really understand, because there is a lot of information out there. There are a lot of people telling a lot of athletes a lot of different things. And the way that you can start differentiating yourself right from the beginning is you can start actually executing on the information. Now, on that note as well, and I'm going to go in a couple of circles or a couple of little tangents here, because this is the way this world is. There's a lot of information out there. Not all of it is good. Be open-minded when you see new information on the internet, but also be cautious, because not all of the information is good. So when you see something, ask yourself, does this make sense? Yes or no? If not, why does this not make sense? Because if you're saying that the information you're reading or watching or whatever it is doesn't make sense because it doesn't agree with what you know already, that's okay, because you might just not know that information. But if you're seeing an exercise that like just looks unsafe, that you're like, oh, like I feel like that would hurt my back, well, that information doesn't make sense, and there's good reason that it doesn't make sense. It looks like it's going to injure you, or it looks like it's going to do bad things to you. You get what I'm saying? So just think critically when you find information on the internet is the main point there. But second, once you find some information, the only way to know 100% if it's going to work for you, execute. Go try it. You had a session, you found a session on the internet that you want to try, go try the session, and then you can make a decision. Do I like it? Do I not? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? And then if you're not sure about something within that session, that's when it's time to ask a question. That's being productive. That's trying something and then trying to make improvements upon it. Versus the people who are busy, who would watch that same video talking about that same session and then ask 14 questions about it, not actually use the answers that they get from the questions that they ask, and then watch another video the next day about a different kind of session and ask more questions. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between just sitting around asking questions, just sitting around making yourself busy, making yourself feel good about how much work you're doing, than the one who's actually executing on the information they're learning. I'm going to give you an example of this from my own career as a coach, because this is something that I have absolutely been guilty of, and I find myself from time to time continuing to be guilty of this, but it's something I'm working very hard on correcting, because I know the importance of finding this difference. So the last gym that I worked at before going off on my own, I started my business in 2019, but I've been a coach since, I want to say like 2010. And in 2019, when I started my business, right before I went off on my own, I was working at this gym called the Athlete Factory that has since shut down. And one of the big things with that gym, they had some fantastic coaches. They had some really great people that worked at really high levels that I was very just happy to be around. But one of the things that we were all very guilty of at that gym was busy, not productive. You know, we all worked a lot. We all pushed ourselves a lot. We all were learning all the time. But what would happen so much, and I know I was very guilty of this, was it almost became culture to be bragging about how much new information you'd learned that day or that week or that month, right? Like, oh, how many books did you read last week? Oh, you didn't read 3 books last week? Like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, well, you know, if you're out actually working with clients and executing on the information, that should be a good thing, right? But in this gym, that was very much the culture, was that, you know, you always have to learn, you always have to educate, you always have to continue to grow. Excuse me. And as much as, yes, I agree with continue to educate yourself, continue to learn, continue to grow, it got to the point where I was so focused on educating myself that I wasn't actually improving my abilities as a coach. I was just packing my brain with more information. I was watching every new video I could find. I was reading every new book I could find. And then I remember one day sitting, reading a book about conditioning for, I think it was endurance runners, which is not a population I've ever worked with, not a population I ever have any desire to work with. And I remember sitting, reading this book, being like, oh yeah, you know, this is some really good information that I'm learning here. And then going, what am I doing? I'm reading a book about working with a population that is not the population I want to work with, not a population that I've ever wanted to work with. just so that I can go into the gym tomorrow and talk about how I read this book about conditioning for runners and talk about some stuff that I learned. And it made me realize that that is wasted time. Even though it's new information, that is wasted time. And this is something I see a lot of athletes do, both with new information, but also with their training. And so, guys, busy, not productive is also a problem when it comes to training. I have a lot of conversations with athletes where they tell me, yeah, I'm training 3 times a day, and I go to the class at this time. I go for an hour-long run every morning, and then I hit the bag for an hour every night. And I'm like, okay, why do you split your day up like that? And it's like, well, I gotta put in the work, right? And then, guys, plain and simple, if you're hitting the bag for an hour every day, but you have no purpose behind what you're doing when you're on the bag, you're wasting time. If you're just throwing random punches, throwing random combinations a few times, just checking the box to be able to go in tomorrow and say, I hit the bag for an hour last night, you're wasting time. That's it. And the reason that that is a waste of time, even though it is fight training, is because you're not improving anything. Just because you're physically moving your hands forward in a punching motion does not mean that you are getting better. So instead, to make that productive instead of busy, what do we need? We need purpose. We need intention. So you can go for that same workout. You can cut the time in half, and you can pick 3 things that you were struggling with your last sparring session or your last pad session with a coach. And you can go work on those 3 things in less time and make more improvement in less time. So instead of just coming out and being like, yep, hit the bag for an hour, I'm a beast. Now you're coming out and you're saying, yeah, that step and uppercut or whatever it is that you were struggling with when you were hitting pads. I spent 30 minutes working on that last night, and I significantly improved how I'm throwing it. You get what I mean? Even if athlete A is hitting the bag an hour every day, if athlete B is doing 20 minutes every day, but actually has a specific thing that they're improving, they are being more productive even though they're spending less time. Because it is easy to be busy. If you're an athlete and you want to brag about how busy your schedule is, cool. Wake up every morning and go for a run. Then after the run, go to the gym. After the gym, go to a class. After the class, hit the bag for an hour. You're busy. But guess what? If I can do as much as you're doing in half the time, I'm going to get the better results. And if I get the better results, who's going to win the fight? The person who got the better result in the least amount of time. So you've got to learn the difference between busy and productive. And especially in the combat sports world, as I've been, getting deeper and deeper into it, I see this so much with athletes where it's almost just the point of pride to be able to walk in and say, I'm the hardest worker in the room. But guys, you need to understand that the winner of the fight is not the hardest worker in the room. The winner of the fight is the one who got the best results out of their training. So just because you were in there for more hours, just because you were in the gym first and you left the gym last, doesn't mean that you're going to win your fight. Just because you ran for an hour every single day doesn't mean that you're going to win your fight. Just because you hit the bag more hours than your opponent hit the bag doesn't mean that you're going to win the fight. What helps you win the fight is what you get out of the training. Now, when I say that, a lot of people immediately assume that I'm telling people that they don't have to work hard. And so if that's you, stop. I'm not telling you you don't have to work hard. I'm telling you that the hard work you do needs purpose. So my challenge for you, my challenge for you coming out of this, guys, is I want you to really take a look at your training week. Take a look at all the sessions you do, all the classes, all the sessions on your own, all the conditioning, all the strength work, everything that you are currently doing. And I want you to ask yourself, what out of this stuff is actually benefiting me? So those bag sessions that you're doing at night, are you actually going in with a plan? Are you actually going in and saying, okay, I was struggling in these 3 areas during my last sparring session. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to hit the bag, and I'm going to focus specifically on these 3 areas? Or are you just going in being like, yeah, I'm going to get a good sweat on and I'm going to hit the bag for an hour because, that's what beasts do. Because if it's number 2, you're wasting your fucking time. If it's number 1, then you're actually going to benefit from the work you're doing. And if you're benefiting from the work you're doing, that's going to lead you to succeed when it actually matters. Because it is so easy to be busy, and it is so easy to puff your chest up, walk around, and talk about how you're willing to outwork anyone. But again, if you're spending your time in the wrong areas, or if someone else is more intentional with their time and can get a better result in less time than you do, they're going to be able to move themselves further ahead. Now, there's one last point actually that I wanted to talk about with this, about being busy, not productive. Now, this is one area, it's a little bit off topic, but almost we're focused around the same topic here. I was having a conversation with an athlete recently who is out with an injury. He's going to be out for a few months. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but he was talking about how he's super upset because he's not going to be able to train and all of that. And this just comes down to being intentional with your time. Now, this athlete was talking about how he's not going to be able to train. He's upset. He's out with an injury. That part of the game sucks. It happens, but it sucks. And I was talking to him, I was like, even when you're out with an injury, think about how you can better use your time. If you are a up-and-coming fighter that is trying to reach high levels in the sport, whether you like it or not, being a brand is an important part of your game. Being well-known is an important part of your game. People need to care to watch you fight. And if they don't care to watch you fight, it's going to be a harder road for you. So when this guy is out with an injury, what I advised him to do is start looking into how he can better use social media. Start looking into building sponsorship packages. Start looking into how to go about getting sponsored. Start looking into these other areas of the game that people overlook so much, so that he's not coming back to training after 3 months or whatever it is, and is 3 months behind. He's coming back to training maybe with one sponsor, maybe with his sponsorship packages built out, maybe with a little bit more of a social media following, maybe with a couple of bigger promotions with their eyes on him. This part of the game is important, and you can ignore it and then complain about how your road is harder than someone else's road, or you can start to learn about it, or you can be more intentional with your time, or you can understand that those 17 hours a week of bag work that you're doing with no fucking purpose is not going to benefit you long term as much as understanding the business side of the game. And you can start to get to work. So guys, being intentional with your time is the key here. This is what I need you guys taking away. Understand that just because you're training a lot, it doesn't mean you're training effectively. And you got to really look at what you're doing, really figure out if what you're doing is truly benefiting you the most it can, and then start asking questions and start seeking new information that you can actually execute on. If you're not executing on the information, it is not useful to you. So guys, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something. I hope I shifted some perspective there. If I did, I would love to know what you learned. I would love to know what you took away. Make sure to drop me a comment on any of my social medias. If you are here on the Instagram account, stick around for a minute. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A. So I appreciate you all. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and I will catch you on the next episode. Guys, stick around. We're doing a little bit of Q&A. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, and I will get to them as they